The non-conference is over. Pitt basketball finished with playing all of the preseason games, if you want to look at it that way. If you want to consider the ACC schedule to be the regular season, you want to consider the preseason games to be, or the non-conference games to be the preseason. The preseason has come to a close. Your Pitt Panthers are sitting at 10-2 after pretty well smoking Sam Houston on Saturday at the Peterson Event Center, following up the Eastern Kentucky game that they won by 40. They beat Sam Houston by, solid 32, which is not bad. Some outstanding individual performances, of course, in that game. Some players playing really well as they come out of the non-conference, and Pitt's heading into the ACC schedule. We got that to talk about from this weekend. Pitt got a couple transfers, I think pretty much on Friday, so we haven't really had a chance to talk about them yet. Another guy went into the transfer portal. We'll touch on that as well, but we're mostly focused on hoops as we look back at what happened over the weekend for your Pitt Panthers. It's our Monday Thoughts episodes. What we do every Monday, we sort of react to the weekend, reflect on the weekend, and that's what we're doing right here on the Morning Pitt. So let's jump into it to get your week started, the holiday week, right here on the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. God, I can't believe it's the holiday week. I'm like shocked. It's like the most cliched thing to say, but I seriously feel like it's like December 3rd or something out here. I can't believe it's already up to this week. I can't believe it's already the 23rd of December. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, Wednesday, Christmas holiday. It's the Thursday, the Game Above Sports Bowl. I mean, all the biggest days in the year are coming up here right in the next few. As you might imagine, we're going to have a bit of an adjusted schedule here on the Morning Pit and here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. No weekly live show, no Wednesday night live show on Wednesday because it's Christmas. I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't expect you to watch it, and we're not going to make Jim come in and do it either. But we will be live after the game on Thursday. Pitt's got the Game Above Sports Bowl on Thursday. That game kicks off at like 2 o'clock or something. We'll be live after that game to talk about it. We'll have a nice long post-game show. We'll get the whiskey and the drinks, and it'll be we'll have a grand old time here talking about what we saw from Pitt in the season finale in Detroit. So we'll have that. I don't think we're going to have a Morning Pit on Christmas Day, though. I don't think anybody's waking up on Christmas saying, hey, I need to get my Pitt podcast fixed. Maybe you like to go out for a walk with the dog or something like that, in which case I apologize that we're not going to have anything for you. But look, man, it's the holiday. Spend it with your family. Find loved ones to share it with. You don't need to listen to me ramble on about Pitt sports. So we got today. We got our Transfer Tuesday episode tomorrow. And then we'll have nothing on Wednesday, and then we'll have a full Game Above Sports Bowl preview for you on Thursday, in addition to the mailbag on Friday, like we always do. So we'll have that, and that's probably what the schedule will look like next week as well, I would think. We won't have anything on New Year's Day, but we'll have some, Monday, Tuesday. I don't think we'll have anything on New Year's Day. I kind of was planning this out a little bit. No, maybe we will. Maybe we will have a New Year's Day episode for you, but we'll have plenty of video content and plenty of stuff at Panther-Lair.com to get you through this week and next week. Heading into 2025, we are in the home stretch of this year, and probably next week I think we'll do some year-end recap stuff and talk about what 2024 has been for Pitt Athletics. It's been a period of change. There's been a lot that's happened this year, and it's been an interesting one. Certainly a lot of storylines, a lot of things to reflect on. Jim and I on the Wednesday night live show talked about what was the biggest biggest news story for Pitt sports in 2024, and there was quite a bit. I mean, there was a lot that happened this year, a lot to talk about, and we'll do that next week. For this week, we're going to stick to our regularly scheduled programming. We're going to recap the weekend. We'll have Transfer Tuesday tomorrow. Like I say, Game Above Sports Bowl preview on Thursday. And then the mailbag on Friday as we kind of move through the week. And so because tomorrow's Transfer Tuesday, we won't spend too much time on the transfers today, but we'll make a quick mention. Pitt got a couple transfers incoming, their first two of the 2024-25 offseason in Florida State wide receiver Deuce Spann, guy who started his career as a quarterback at Illinois, moved to wide receiver, and then transferred to Florida State. Pretty intriguing guy. He's got size. He's got speed. That's a good combo. And then they got James London, a kicker from Murray State, a guy who made 7 kicks of 50 yards or more this season. I think he ended up being an FCS All-American. Looks like a pretty good kicker. Coming in on scholarship to replace Ben Sauls. He'll be Pitt's kicker for next year. Pretty nice add there. They also lost Jordan Bass to the transfer portal. Disappointing to see Bass go. Understand why. Wants a bigger role, an opportunity to start. And he probably wasn't going to get that at Pitt in 2025. He probably would have played a lot, but he wouldn't necessarily have moved into the starting lineup, barring injury. So we'll get into that more tomorrow on Transfer Tuesday. I did want to touch on it real quick. Didn't want you to miss any of the news from the weekend. But like I say, since tomorrow's Transfer Tuesday, we'll do more of that tomorrow on our Christmas Eve episode. Because what else would you want to do on Christmas Eve but talk about transfers, right? All right, Pitt basketball. Panthers hosted Sam Houston in the non-conference finale. They beat them 110-78. This was a game that was never really close. It was 12 points at halftime, and that was it was a big 12 because Sam Houston shot pretty ridiculous from the field. They shot almost 54% from the floor in the first half, 6 of 13 from 3 in the first half, and that hot shooting really kind of kept them in it, but Pitt never took their foot off the gas. They shot 58% in the first half, almost 50%, 8 of 17 from 3 in the first half, and really didn't drop off at all. Actually, they shot even better. They were 8 of 14 from 3 in the second half. They shot almost 60%. I mean, like, they could not miss. That was the kind of good offensive game you want to see from this team. It was the kind of offensive game you thought that they were capable of. You hoped they were capable of. You hoped that they could show that they could play, particularly against this level of competition, and they did it. And I really think Pitt finished this non-conference schedule pretty well. 96-56 blowout over Eastern Kentucky, the 110-78 win over Sam Houston. And really, if you go back to the Mississippi State game where they lost and got blown out, but since then they beat Virginia Tech on the road. Nice start to conference play, and then they have the two blowouts to close out the non-conference schedule. So, ugly loss at Mississippi State. They drop by 33. They get killed on the road in that game, but then they come back, they beat Virginia Tech on the road, and then they blow out these final two non-conference teams. And so, I mean, a good bounce back from that loss, the good, the kinds of performances you want to see. You've got Jalen Lowe putting up double-doubles. You've got a couple of guys scoring 23 each in this game against Sam Houston. It was what you liked on a lot of levels. And to some extent, it's Sam Houston. It was a 6-5 Conference USA team. They have a really good player in Lamar Wilkerson, and I think Pitt did a really good job defensively against him. Wilkerson finished with 15 points, but he was 5 of 15 from the floor, 2 of 9 from 3. And he's a guy who averaged 20 points per game coming into Saturday. And it wasn't just a matter of he just takes a billion shots. He takes a lot of shots, but he shot really well throughout the season, shooting like 45 to 48% from the floor, same from 3. He's a good shooter. He's a good player, really good offensive weapon. And Pitt was able to largely keep him in check. Like I say, 5 of 15 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. Big credit to Ishmael Leggett for the defensive work there. And it really felt like the baskets that Wilkerson got and the good looks that he got, really, not just the baskets he made, but even like good attempts, came when Sam Houston was able to get Pitt to switch and leave Cam Corrin or Guillermo Diaz-Graham or one of those guys on Wilkerson. When Ishmael Leggett was guarding him, Wilkerson really couldn't do anything. And I'm skipping over a double-double, 2 23-point games, one of the best games we've seen from Cam Corrin, at least recently. I'm going to get to all those things, but I'm going to this defense first because I think it's really, really important. I believe this team can score. All right? Like Jalen Lowe, Ishmael Leggett, they're going to get theirs every night. When Damian Dunn comes back, he's going to score. Zach Austin has proven to be a pretty reliable scorer, particularly in the last 3 games, but all season as his role has increased. And we could go on down the line, and the further I get down the line of players, the more I'm going to have to say about them. If I were to mention Amsal Delilich or Guillermo Diaz-Graham or Brandon Cummings, I'm going to have to say more about them, and that's not what we're talking about right here. I believe the offense for this team will be okay. I believe they're going to score. I believe they'll be able to shoot. I believe they'll be able to drive. They need to show that they can defend. And you're coming out of a game where at the end, even with a pretty bad second half, Sam Houston still shot 53.6% in the game. The 3-point percentage dropped off because they were only 1 of 10 in the second half. They were 30% for the game. and only made 55% of their free throws. And so it's funny to look at a game where you gave up 53%, 54% field goal percentage and say, well, there was a pretty good defensive performance in there, because there was from Ishmael Leggett. All right. And what Pitt has done pretty much all season long, they've done it since the beginning, is put Ishmael Leggett on the other team's best guard. And it hasn't been 100%. Sometimes Damian Dunn has taken that assignment, just depending on the type of player it is. Zach Austin has drawn some of that assignment. But for the most part, it's been, that's their scoring wing, their scoring guard, their number one guy. Ishmael Leggett, you're on him. And I think that was part of his game last year. I think he was a good defender last year. I think he's become even better this year. I think he's become a great defender this year. And I think that's going to make a huge difference in these next 19 games. That Ishmael Leggett, I'm not going to go so far as to say, oh, he can take someone out of the game. But I think he can make life very, very difficult for an opposing team's top perimeter weapon. Just like he did with Lamar Wilkerson. People were making jokes in the game thread on their message boards at Panther-Lair.com saying, oh, it'd be nice if Pitt could get Wilkerson out of the portal next year. Like, Lamar Wilkerson is the type of guy that other teams will look at in the portal, hoping he goes into the portal next offseason. I'm sure they probably were hoping he would go into the portal this past offseason, because he was really good last year too. He's the kind of guy that would become a highly coveted target, and you could see it. You could see it when they got Leggett switched off, and it was Wilkerson against one of the centers. You could see his talent, the ball handling, the shooting, the touch. I mean, he's just got it. He's really good, except when Ishmael Leggett was guarding him. And so Pitt has done this all year long, and it's worked. It's been really effective. He's been really good at it, and I think that's going to help them win games over these next 19 ACC games. Ishmael Leggett's defensive work is going to be a big factor for them. And then you bring Damian Dunn back into the mix, and now you've got two really good on-the-ball defenders on the perimeter. And so I think you're potentially looking at a team that could be better defensively than last year's team was. And even though I think Bub Carrington grew into a pretty good defender and obviously had the length and the range, but grew and learned how to be a good defender in college. Damian Dunn sort of arrived fully delivered, fully developed, I should say. I mean, he's an old guy. Excuse me. He's been in college basketball for a long time. Man, got the hiccups. And then just played at Houston, where defense is number one, right? They have to be able to defend well. And I think he learned a lot there. Jeff Capel sometimes says that he thinks Damian Dunn learned more at Houston than even he realizes. And so when you put those two guys on the court together, Leggett and Dunn, defensively, and you throw in Zach Austin with what he's been able to do defensively this year, I think you've got a chance to be even better defensively than they were a year ago. Even though they've given up some of that rim protection that Fede Federico offered, I think in terms of on the ball and cutting off penetration and denying, denying guards and wings and perimeter players from getting the looks they want, this year's team should be better than last year's team was because of Leggett and Dunn. And I think Leggett was Leggett has showed it through 12 games. And I think he definitely showed it on Saturday against a really good player. One of the better players I think Pitt has faced this year in Lamar Wilkerson. He's going to be really good this season because, again, he had an off night and he still scored 15 points. Cameron Hufner had 26 in the game, but that's beside the point. So the defense stood out. I think the defense was a big part of it. Now, of course, there's also Jalen Lowe had 18 points and 11 assists. Leggett and Zach Austin scored 23 each. They both shot 8 of 12 from the field. Austin was 5 of 9 from 3. Leggett was 3 of 4 from 3. They combined were 6 of 7 from the free throw line. Those guys were doing everything. They both grabbed 5 rebounds. They both had multiple offensive boards. Just an outstanding game from those two guys. And the fact that they combined to shoot 8 of 13 from 3, that helps. Cam Corrin maybe one of the more active games we've seen from him at Pitt in everything that he was doing, particularly on the offensive end. One of the more active games I think we've seen from him. Going up for alley-oops, but also getting rebounds. He had 3 offensive rebounds. One of them he put back for second chance points. He scored 15 points, shot 5 of 7 from the floor. It was one of his more productive games at Pitt. It was, and like I say, the word active. When I was watching Cam Corhen on Saturday, the word active kept coming to mind. That, he's just, he's active. He's moving. He's doing things. He's getting open. He's getting the ball. He's trying to make something happen, which I feel like was lacking a little bit in recent games. Cam Corhen hit a real slump, and I'm not entirely convinced that he's out of it. I'm going to need to see him do it against higher level competition than Sam Houston to believe that he's out of the slump. But when you look back over his recent games, he had 5 points against Eastern Kentucky, 6 points against Virginia Tech. He had 2 points in the loss at Mississippi State. Played less than 20 minutes in that game. He had 4 points at Ohio State. So, 4 straight single-digit scoring games where he scored 17 total points. He puts up 15 against Sam Houston. That can be the kind of game, or maybe that can be the kind of game that gets him out of this funk and out of this slump and gets him rolling again. And we'll see. We'll see. It's something we'll judge after the fact to decide. But they need something out of him. They need a presence from Cam Corhen. It can't be, Pitt can't set themselves up to just be defended on the perimeter. Cam Corhen has to be a threat, and he's got to be ready for passes. He has to be ready for the interior passing that can come from Leggett or Lowe or Delilich, quite frankly, because there were times that Delilich made some great passes and the guys weren't ready for it. I think Cam Corhen at least once. So encouraging game from Cam Corhen, just for how active he was. And it, resulted in points, 15 points and 6 rebounds. Getting closer to that Damian Dunn return, which is obviously going to be big for when Pitt goes into the ACC, when they get into the schedule. He's not going to be back for the Cal game. He's not going to be back for the Stanford game. So he'll miss those 2, Cal on New Year's Day, Stanford on the Saturday after that. The next game after that, they're at Duke on January 7th. I think it's a Tuesday. I believe 6 weeks from his surgery, exactly 6 weeks, would be the day before that. That Monday, January 6th, I think it is. Now, Jeff Capel said, I asked him this week, how's Damian Dunn doing? He said he's still on basically that 6-week timeline. Said he should be out of the cast soon and into a splint. And so it's still progressing on the timeline that they initially hoped for of 6 weeks from the surgery. I don't know if you can entirely count on that, though, when you're talking about the next game being 1 day after the 6 weeks. Now, he might be able to get out there and play at Duke on the 7th. He may be able to play limited minutes. He may be able, who knows? Who knows what he's able to do? It's how does his thumb progress? When he gets back, that's going to be big. Now, he might miss as many as, maybe he misses the Duke game. They don't, after that, they don't play again until the following Saturday. So it'd be another 4 days off before they host Louisville at home. They don't have a break. Where's their break? It's after that. So they have Louisville on the 11th. They play at Florida State on January 15th. They have Clemson at home on January 18th. And then they have a week off until the 25th. At that point, you're getting into 8 weeks, 9 weeks since the surgery. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. You circle in pencil that Duke game for Dunn's return and then just kind of hope that's what can end up happening. In the meantime, they'll have to keep playing like they have without him. Zach Austin moving into the starting lineup, Brandon Cummings being the first reserve off the bench, Amsal Delilich being in the mix there. I thought Delilich, I thought he looked really good on Saturday. And granted, I'm the first guy trying to find ways for him to look good, but I thought he really looked good. I mean, again, they credited him with one turnover, and I'm not sure. There were a number of times the ball was turned over on a pass from Delilich, but they were such good passes. They were kind of sick passes that his teammates really didn't know they were coming or they weren't expecting them. It was like a shock. And so you see a ball like bounce off a guy's knee or something because they just don't. And this is something Jeff Capel said from like the first game that Delilich got in there after his injury, when he's like, our guys aren't used to seeing passes like that. Well, it seems like they're still not used to seeing it. They should get used to seeing it because they're really good passes that set you up for a really good basket and a good opportunity. Delilich, his shot is so pretty. And that was on the three that he made, the pull-up jumper that he shot, and even the three that he made that got waved off because of an illegal screen. Like, his shot is so pretty, and I think he showed on Saturday he can be an elite-level passer as well. That game, as much as any, I felt like showed some of the potential that's there. And I think it's just going to keep growing and growing, and he's going to keep improving and showing more and more of what he can do. And so it's interesting when you look at the depth for this team. I mean, you let's say they have the 5 starters they have right now. You have Cummings, you have Delilich. You throw Damian Dunn back into the mix. I mean, you legitimately have 8 guys that you should feel comfortable putting out there. And then you have another center in Papa Amadou Kanti. You have another wing and Jorge Diaz-Graham. I mean, that's down to like 10 guys, particularly given the way that Jorge has shot the ball. Like, almost 10 guys you would feel comfortable putting on the court. Now, it's one thing to feel comfortable putting him on the court against Sam Houston. It's going to be another thing to feel comfortable putting him on the court against Cal or Stanford or Duke. There's a bit of a difference there. And I don't think they're going to be 10 deep when they go into those games. But they should be able to go 8. Once you have Damian Dunn back. You put Dunn back in this rotation. Like, there isn't one of those 8 guys I don't want to get on the court and get minutes for. Obviously you want to get more for Lowe and Leggett and Austin, but those 3 plus Guillermo Diaz-Graham and Cam Corrin and Damian Dunn and Brandon Cummings and Amsal Delilich, like, I'm not really looking to chip any of those guys out of the rotation. I think you can go 8 deep this year. Maybe more than any other year that Capel has had. Now, I feel like we've said that every other year under Capel, and they've never ended up going 8 deep once they got into the ACC, but I think they should be able to. Yeah, I really do. All right, so sitting at 10-2, heading into the ACC schedule. The 2 losses, of course, the Wisconsin game on a neutral court, Mississippi State on the road. Both count as quad 1 losses for Pitt. As of last night, Pitt was number 9 in the net rankings. Again, very early. A lot still left to go, but they have no losses outside of quad 1 games. They're 2-2 in those quad 1 games and undefeated in the quad 2 and quad 3 games they've played so far. I forget if one of them counts as a quad 4. Yeah, the net rankings up. I think there is one. Oh yeah, they're 3-0 in quad 4. They were 1-0 in quad 2, 4-0 in quad 3, 3-0 in quad 4, and all these things will change like 10 times over the next couple of weeks, let alone the next couple of months. So we're not going to get too hung up on the net ranking right now, but I'll say this. Okay? I'll say this. If you look at last year and this year, okay, the thing that kept Pitt out of the NCAA tournament last year, more than any, and there's always multiple factors. There were a number of games that, if that game went the other way, they could have got in. The one biggest hit on their resume, the one game, if you were going to boil it down to one game that kept them out, it was the Missouri game. That loss at home to a bad Missouri team. This Pitt team has gotten through the non-conference without that. And instead of that loss to Missouri, they've got a win at Ohio State. And we'll probably spend too much time this season debating whether or not Ohio State is good. Although, what they do? They just beat Kentucky or something, right? So maybe they are. But it doesn't matter. Because they won on the road. They won that game in Columbus. That game, and I said this to you from the start, from the first time that game was announced, and I've said it ever since, and Jeff Capel more or less confirmed it this week. The Ohio State game, putting that on the schedule, was the response to missing the tournament last year. It was. They felt like they needed one more game to boost the resume. They got it, and they won on the road. They don't have a Missouri loss on their resume. Now, could you get one in the conference play? Sure. But they don't have it right now. And so as long as they, we can spend a lot of time debating what the minimum ACC record would need to be for this team to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament. But, I mean, I think 13-7 should get them in 12-8, should get them in conference play with the 10-2 they've already put up. If they're 22-10 with those wins that they've already gotten and without any bad losses, because again, by the time they got to this point last year, they already had that Missouri loss that they had to try to make up for. They don't have that this year. This year they've avoided it. So as long as they get 12, 13 or more, and I think they're capable of getting more in ACC play, they're a tournament team. So would you have loved to come out of the non-conference 12-0? Of course. Would you have loved to come out of the non-conference without a 33-point blowout loss? Of course. But to be 10-2, no losses at home, one win on the road, another win on a neutral court, and really, I mean, 2 wins on the road, but just talking about the non-conference schedule, because they did also beat Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech, but just looking at the non-conference schedule, right, where they're, 9-2, 2 losses, both away from home, one on a neutral court, one on the road. Neither one looks like a bad loss. Plus, they got a win on the road and a win on a neutral court. And they blew out teams by 30 or 40 points. Like, I would have to say, for the non-conference, for the 2024 portion of the 2024-25 schedule, mission accomplished for Pitt. They did what they needed to do. Now they go into the next 19 games. They play the conference schedule, and they find out how good they really are and whether they deserve that spot in the NCAA tournament. But whatever they needed to do in the non-conference, I think they accomplished it. All right, tomorrow's Transfer Tuesday. We'll talk more about these transfers that are coming into Pitt, plus guys that they have lost. We'll talk about some of the targets they're after and visits and things like that. Transfer Tuesday is always fun. It's something we just invented like 2 weeks ago, but hey, it's a rip-roaring success, a smashing success, so we're having a blast with it. Listen, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you never miss any of our Pitt video content. Don't forget, this week, we won't have as much Pitt video content. We will not have a Morning Pitt on Christmas Day, and we will not have a live Panther-Lair show on Christmas Day, but we will have a post-game show on Thursday after the Game Above Sports Bowl. So, got a lot of stuff here. Got a lot of stuff at the website, Panther-Lair.com. Check it out, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Yeah, I think that's about it. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope all your shopping's done and your wrapping is done, and start baking the cookies, right? All right, have a great Monday. We will catch up with you tomorrow for Transfer Tuesday right here on the Morning Pit, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.